This is Matt Woods. Thanks for tuning in to Backstory STL. I met with this week's guest at the Magic Chef Mansion in South St. Louis. So if you're watching the episode, please enjoy the taxidermy polar bear in the background, even though it has nothing to do with our conversation. Just fun scenery. Anyway, this week's guest has left St. Louis on a bike ride that will land him 2,200 miles away in a different country. And he's doing it to raise awareness for the eradication of polio. He came up with the idea for the ride as part of his service with Rotary International, which takes on challenging causes, like helping eradicate a long-time disease. This will be his third and longest bike ride for polio awareness, and he does it with an eye-catching rickshaw seat attached to the back. Here's the backstory of Ralph Zuke and the rickshaw ride for polio. What's the whole idea of the ride? What is it for?
So the ride is for raising both money and awareness about polio. Most people in the U.S. don't even think about it because it's been gone from the U.S. since I believe the late 70s, early 70s, somewhere in that area. And so it's gone and forgotten about. The reality is that it only exists in a very small area. As wild polio. It's the Afghan-Pakistan border. And so we're very close to eradicating it. It'll only be the second disease that's ever been eradicated, smallpox being the other one. And what happened and how I sort of started doing these rides was I was getting ready to be the club president of the Fairview Heights Rotary Club for the second time. And the outgoing president said, "So what's going to be your pet project?" And I'd been asking a lot of the Rotarians, do you have something? Because I didn't have anything. I was like, if y'all have something, I'll champion it for my year. And nobody had anything. And it was getting closer and closer to when I took over. And the outgoing president said, so what's it going to be? And I had just read an article the day before that said the year before, Rotary or polio had gotten down to 22 cases worldwide. And I was blown away because the last time I even really looked at it, it was still just south of 1,000. It still was in India, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Nigeria. And at that time it was Nigeria, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. India had eradicated it. So I was astounded because that it's like we are truly we like as Rotarians, we keep saying we're this close, and that's great. But until we're there, our job isn't done. Rotary had made a promise in 1984 to the children of the world, both present and future, that we will eradicate polio and make it a polio-free world and just a little bit safer world for children.
Yeah.
And when they first started that, the World Health Organization said, "We don't want any part of that. It's too ambitious. We don't think it can be done. And we really can't afford to put our limited resources to something we don't think could happen." And it's a fair assessment.
Right.
I think a lot of people thought that. But there was a group of Rotarians who said, "No, I think we can do this." And they started plugging away at it. And the thing about Rotary is it's 1.2 million people. Collectively, you got a lot of brilliant minds working there. Actually, even individually, there's a lot of brilliant minds in Rotary. And so they started working on it, and they started creating this incredible healthcare network of a distribution for the polio vaccine. The polio vaccine that's most widely used is the live vaccine, which is 2 drops put on a child's tongue, and the oral vaccine. And when you do that, you have to keep that vaccine chilled from the point of when it's made to when you put it on its tongue, because if not, if it got above a certain temperature, it could mutate and then cause what's called a vaccine-derived polio. And so they created a very efficient network though to do it. But anyway, so back to how I got started was that I was sitting there and I noticed 22 and I thought, that's amazing. I said, so I told the outgoing president, I said, well, I think I'm going to ride my bike to Toronto for the international conference. In that year, it was in Toronto, and I would ride it there. And she said, yeah, but what's the hook? I said, well, I'm going to do it with a Barcalounger rickshaw behind me the entire way. And she kind of looked at me funny, and she said, what's that? So I pulled out my phone, and I showed her. I had created a rickshaw that looks like a 1952 Barcalounger chair. And it's incredibly comfortable. It's something that if you see it ride by, you are going to look at it. It's been a far better hook than I ever expected it to be. I can't go anywhere with that on there that if somebody's there, they're going to look, and all I have to do is make eye contact. And then I get to tell them about what we're doing, why we're doing it, how they can help support it. I often will get them into the chair to have a ride, which is great. It's kind of like captive audience because you can't get out while it's moving. And it allows me to tell them about all this stuff. And I can safely say not one person has ever gotten out of that chair without smiling, because it's just fun and it's very comfortable. And so the only problem was that chair weighed 115 pounds. And after I did the ride to Houston a couple years later, I realized that as I'm getting older, I can't do 115 pounds. And not only that, I knew that the next time that I'd be riding to a convention, it was in Calgary, which Toronto was 704 miles or 2 miles. Houston was 904. Calgary's in the neighborhood of 2,200 miles. And whew. So it's more than the other two combined. And I knew this is very ambitious. But it's a job that I feel we need to finish it. We got polio on the ropes. We finished the job. We're done. Now, it doesn't mean that we pack up our bags and we take off. The actual initiative is called Polio Plus. So again, the network has been made. It's not like you get rid of it. So now, it could be malaria, it could be dengue fever. I think they even used it for some of the COVID worldwide. So it's there, and it's incredibly effective, to the point that the Gates Foundation has joined Rotary in its effort. I think it's they match up to the first $150 million, and I could be a little off on it. I think it is $150 million every year. And so as Rotarians give, and they do a 2-to-1 match. So every time we give $1, they give $2. And that's because they recognize that Rotary has this incredible network. They have the money, but they don't have that kind of network. And so we're a very good system to work with, the Gates Foundation. And it's been great, and it's definitely made a big difference. So I truly want to be there the day that we can announce it's done, because it's been 40 years, and a lot of people put a lot of effort into it. And part of what I do is also, I want to honor the people who have gone before me, because they laid the groundwork. I'm just there to hopefully get it across the finish line, but they did the hard work. What I do, it's hard in a sense, but actually it's really easy. I love to talk. I love to meet people, tell them about what we're doing, tell them about Rotary. That's not a hard thing for me to do. It's an organization that I believe in, does a lot of incredibly good work worldwide.
Yeah. So 2,200 miles. That's got to take quite a bit of prep. What are you doing the last couple months to get ready for that?
Surprisingly little. I did a lot of riding last fall. Really felt like I'm actually about 55 pounds lighter than when I did the ride to Houston and to Toronto, thanks to diabetes and Ozempic. And that has made a big difference. Also, we built a new rickshaw, which is 70 pounds lighter than the original one.
Yeah, that's gonna do a number for you.
I was a little nervous when the last one was such an eye-catching thing, and so I took the idea to this gentleman who's on North Broadway, Dan, and I hope I get this right, Boshin. He is literally an artist with metal, and I had needed somebody who could weld aluminum, and that's apparently a fairly tough skill to have.
Oh, okay.
He definitely has it. And he also, so I showed him the original chair and I said, this is the concept, but I need to do it lighter. And then I said, it won't be a Barca-Lounger chair. It'll be what's called a zero gravity lounge chair, which is just by itself a lot lighter. And I said, but I need to have the right mount for it. And he got to work on it. And a few weeks later, he sends me this computer animation, like 3D, where you can like walk around it. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, that is amazing. Like, this guy just nailed it.
Did he have it to the pound too? Like, did he know how much it was going to weigh?
He didn't know how much it was going to weigh at that point, but we knew it was going to be a lot lighter.
Yeah.
And it ended up being even lighter than I had really was shooting for. Mm-hmm. So he did a great job, and it's very eye-catching.
Is the functionality pretty much still the same?
It is. It's still very comfortable, even though it's not an upholstered chair. I'm surprised. I mean, I've sat in it and it's like, yeah, this is a really comfortable chair.
There you go.
And so that was very nice. But it was the design work he did. He lowered the platform where the axle actually comes in underneath the chair, which was a really key element. The last chair was hard for particularly older people to get in and out of. This should be considerably easier, that we can put almost anybody into this chair. And it's easier for them to get out of once I stop riding. So it's a phenomenal design. The thing I love the best, though, is on the back. He asked me, do you want a taillight on the back? I said, yeah, you know, the last one didn't have a taillight. Even though I have a SAG vehicle behind me at all times when I'm on the road. Mm-hmm. I can see back about to here. Then the SAG vehicle protects my blind side. And they're always back there. And they have my pickup truck and a trailer that has big signage on it. But having the additional light, I felt the one thing you don't want to do when you're fundraising is die doing it. So, you take every precaution you can. So right. I was like, yeah, a tail light would be really nice. And so I thought he would just mount some, lights on. No, he took aluminum, had it water jet cut to be the rotary wheel. And then on top of that, he did, so it's red diodes that show through, and then he did a lens that he did on his 3D printer that fit inside of it that has Rotary International on it. And I'm like, that's the coolest thing. I'm like, that is
now
amazing.
You got the logo too.
Got the logo. It's a beautiful, it's a piece of artwork.
Wow.
I mean, I lucked out. I got exactly the right guy for this job.
That's cool, man.
And he did.
So what kind of bike are you riding for 2,200 miles? Is it a nice Trek at least, or something like that?
Okay, so
or I guess it's gotta be. Does it have to be like a mountain bike or?
No. I'm actually it's a touring bike, and it's a 25-year-old Cannondale, and it's got a unique feature to it that I won't go into, but it makes it coast really well, and it's a very responsive bike. It's aluminum. It's very stiff. It's probably not the most comfortable ride, but to be honest, it doesn't faze me at all. You could put me on a much softer, steel frame bike, which has more flex. I really can't tell the difference, other than I can tell the aluminum one has, it just responds better when I'm riding it. And I tried to get a hold of somebody at Cannondale, because I'm like, look, the bike it's an awesome bike. And I've probably put 15,000 miles on it. I actually bought it in a yard sale from a guy moving to France. And he made me promise him that I would use it.
Oh, wow.
I think I fulfilled my end of that promise.
You should have kept his number and then called him like, hey, man, more than you can ever imagine.
Yeah, it definitely, I kept my promise with him. And,
wow, that's cool.
And I love that bike. But I'd love if Cannondale would be willing to give me a nicer looking bike to go with such a nice looking rickshaw.
So I've never heard of that brand. Are they is it like a popular?
Cannondale? Oh, yeah. it's a pretty well known brand.
I'm not like big in that the biking stuff, but
no, it's a pretty well known brand. I think it's a U.S. company.
Oh, really?
I'm pretty sure. Now the other bike that I do use sometimes, and it is a steel frame, is a Gunner, and that is made up in Wisconsin. And I like the bike. It's a very nice bike, but it looks nicer. It's just clashes with the blue of the rickshaw, so it's not quite as But it's a very good bike too.
Right.
So I always have two bikes with me in case we have any failure. I can just unclip it and go to the next bike. And
Yeah,
so
that's
we
one
get
thing I was
somewhere.
going to say. It sounds like how are you prepared in case the chain breaks or something's bound to go wrong over that many miles.
Amazingly, I've had very little problems with the bikes. I think I've had one flat tire on the rickshaw on the way to Toronto, and I think one flat tire on my bike on the way to Houston. That was it. Everything else, I get them checked out before I go. I'm not particularly hard on the bikes. It's not a race, so I'm not putting a lot of torque into it. I'm going at 12, 13 miles an hour, depending on the wind conditions. Also road conditions. I try not to go on to gravel roads much. I'm probably going to hit a few of them on this. It's inevitable. I mean, because you're not riding on highways. So even though Calgary, if you put Calgary into your GPS, it's 1,750 miles from St. Louis to Calgary. But we're not riding highways. We're riding those secondary roads off of that. And when you get into places like Montana, those roads are pretty limited. There's not much out there. And there's some parts where we will be 50 miles from the nearest town of any size. So we have stuff, we have plenty of gear, and having a truck behind me, I don't have to worry about it. If we had something major go bad, we throw everything in the truck, we'll go to a town that has what we need to fix it. And that's fine. That's all we need. So, and you find when you do these rides, there's a challenge thrown at you every day. You just, you gotta roll with it. I have a good team of people around me. I have people I can call. To give you an example, when we were riding to Houston, there was a morning that we had pulled in next to this very large boat. And we pulled in next to it because we just figured, well, we're both about the same length. That way we're not in anyone's way. But then somebody parked their truck right in front of us, or van. And I'm like, so the next morning we get out to start a ride, and I'm like, we can't get our SAG vehicle out. So I go to the hotel manager and I said, hey, can you help us out here? Do you know who this could be? Because we need to get it moved so we can get out. He goes, oh, I'm really sorry. That's one of the road crews. They're long-term guest here while they're working on a road construction. He goes, they're already gone for the day. It's like, oh, geez, what are we going to do?
Got to go find the road crew and tell them to come back.
Well, at one point, my SAG driver walked over to the van and he pulled the handle and it was unlocked. And so we're like, well, maybe we just put it in neutral, move it forward, get the truck out and move it back. And it's funny because the hotel manager's like, I can't see this. I can't watch this. I'm not allowed to know. So,
but I'm not going to tell you no.
Right. He goes, so we hopped in, and it actually even had the key in the ignition, but there must have been a kill switch because we did try to start it so we could move it. And but we were able to put it in neutral. We pulled it forward, get the truck out. And it was just a little bit of uphill to push it back in. I'm like, well, there's a spot right here. Let's just push it right into the one in front of us. And at that point, I also looked at the dashboard, and there was, this is in blazing sunlight. There's a box of condoms sitting on the top of the dashboard. And I'm like, I'm a health teacher. At least that was when I started. And that's like the worst thing you can do is put condoms into a hot sun. And it occurred to me, I was looking at the photograph from when we did this. I was doing a speech recently, and this was 2.5 years ago. So very likely there's some guy in the middle of central Arkansas with a little 2-year-old doing what 2-year-olds do, thinking, how did this happen? It was like, I can tell you, I know how this happened.
Know exactly how it happened, but maybe
no,
his battery doesn't find out.
And I was real tempted to leave a note, but I'm kind of like, well, we did break into your van and move it. I shouldn't leave a note.
Nah, man. Well, sometimes it sounds like he deserved it for blocking you in the first place. So.
He might not. In fairness, he came in at night. He might not have even seen we were there.
Yeah.
So I don't blame him. It was just an unfortunate situation. But you run into those things almost every day. Something happens. You just have to roll with it and figure out, okay, what's the best approach? How can we get through this? And again, I have a good team around me, and we always figure it out. So far, we in 1,600 miles of doing this, nothing's stopped us. We kept going. So the closest I've ever had actually having to stop was on the way to Toronto after doing a 500-mile stretch in like 6 days. I was staying with a couple that had a house on the lake, and at one point I noticed they had a boat down on the dock, and they go, yeah, do you water ski? I'm like, I haven't water skied in a good number of years, but yeah, I used to do a little. I'm like, well, let's take the boat out. And so we did, and the very first time, man, he throttled up. I got almost all the way up, and I went down, pulled a hamstring. I've never pulled a hamstring as bad as I pulled that. I mean, it was bruised up, and I could barely move. And I'm thinking, I can't, I'm in the
It's
middle
over,
of
man.
I thought it was over, but I'm also very determined, and also I was super determined because I knew that when I crossed the bridge from Detroit into Windsor, I was going to be meeting a very special Rotarian who at the time, I had met her one time in St. Louis, and everyone knew she eventually would be the first female Rotarian president of Rotary International. You just knew it. She is incredibly ambitious, phenomenal person. I didn't want to miss. She was going to interview me when I got over there, and I'm like, I can't miss this. I can't miss getting interviewed by Jennifer. And so I missed 3 days of riding, one which was built in anyway, so that was fine. I got my leg worked on a couple times by a massage therapist. And then on the next day, I was like, it's the day I need to cross the bridge. I got on in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And the first 2 or 3 miles, it was hurting a little bit. But then all of a sudden, it released. And I was able to ride, and I finished the entire ride.
Sometimes working it out a little bit actually helps. Yeah.
And I did still have it worked on. When I got into Canada, there was a woman who did it again, massaged it, did some electrotherapy. It was a little uncomfortable first thing in the morning, but again, we got through it. I mean, I had one doctor say, it'll be 6 weeks before you ride again. I'm like, no, I can't have that. I was like, 3 days.
We're gonna end polio now, doc.
Yeah, it's like, no. So the running joke is I don't do water skiing when I'm riding. Even the trip to Houston, I was in Cape Girardeau when they had the Soapbox Derby, and it's run by a Rotary Club. They actually have where adults can squeeze into them and race them, and I so wanted to do that. I was like, that looks like so much fun. So instead, I had to have Dwayne Tiggs, my SAG driver. I said, you're going to have to be my body double. You get in and do it. So he did, and he didn't wreck it. He did a great job. I think he lost by literally 1.25 inches, which was like over a quarter mile. And I told him, if you'd just eaten one more hot dog, you would have had that weight and you would have passed him. But it was worth it. It was good. His job was to keep me from getting hurt. So, and doing stupid things, which gotta be careful about.
So why is this one in Calgary? What's the significance of that?
The International Conference for Rotary is in Calgary this year.
Oh, okay.
It's all over the world. They'll like this year it's in Calgary, next year it's in Taipei. The year after it was going to be, I think, in Honolulu or in Hawaii, but they just announced they're going to have to change it to a different location. So we'll see where that ends up. I think it's every other year. It's in the U.S. and then Calgary. While Calgary and Toronto are not in the U.S., so it's close enough.
Close enough.
We're going to do them. Thank God Calgary's on this side of the Rockies. I am very relieved by that because I couldn't imagine going over the Rockies with a rickshaw. So
what province they call them provinces up there, don't they?
I believe so. Alberta.
Alberta. Okay. Yeah.
So, and the general route is I'll be cutting across Missouri to Kansas City, going up the Missouri side up into Iowa, cut across into Omaha. There's another town, I can't think of the name of it right now, that will start the Cowboy Trail, which is another rail to trail. I'll take that mostly across Nebraska. Then we cut up the west side of South Dakota. I think we clip a corner of Wyoming and then Montana and then up into Alberta to Calgary. And I think it's going to be actually a very pretty ride. Like unlike when you're in a car and you're going 65, 85 miles an hour, on a bike you're going 12, 15 miles an hour. You see things that you would never see in a car. You experience things that you would never get to experience. I mean, there's been several times on the rides where like I'll go through areas where there's clearly a lot of honeysuckle in bloom, and the smell, it's like, you know, you don't get that when you're in a car. You blow through it, you never notice that, wow, that just smells really nice. Or you know, there's a bird called a killdeer that nest on the sides of roads, usually in the gravel, and the chicks, you can barely ever see them. They blend in so well. How you know they're there is that the mother bird pretends she has a broken wing and she tries to lure you away from the chick. So anytime you see a killdeer and she's doing the broken wing, you know there's a chick right there. So I would purposely try to start finding them. And then over the course of several hundred miles, I got pretty good at finding them. When I saw what was going on, I could usually spot where the chick was.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, it's things like that. It's little stuff, and it forces you to slow down your life. My life is pretty frenetic. I go at a very high pace. This forces me to drop back and sort of recalibrate a little bit. So it's also something I feel it's really good for me to do. And I love it. Like I said, I get to see things that most people never get to see.
Right. Take 9 weeks off. A lot of, I mean, you're going to be tired, you know, the whole time. But
sure, but it's a different type of tired.
Right.
And it's a pretty exhilarating tired. You know, you have to be on, because I'll be speaking to lots of people. I'll be getting interviewed. You know, you have to be on. And it is nice. Every once in a while, I do like just staying in a hotel. Most of the time, I'm staying with Rotarians. But every once in a while, it's great. Like a Rotary Club will say, hey, we don't have anyone with an extra room, but we'll put you up in one of the hotels in town. And it is kind of nice every once in a while to just go in, take a hot shower, lay on the bed, and just be like, yeah, I don't have to be on right now, you know. And so, but I actually love the part of being on. It's just that, you know, there is a limit, but I love doing it. And I do. I get to meet amazing people the whole way. And sometimes, you know, it could be just some old guy who's under a tree doing a bike ride himself. And we start talking and come to find out that, you know, his brother had passed away from polio, you know, and you get these stories. And I have never been directly affected by polio, not only my family, not myself, but, you know, I have met a lot of people who actually normally won't even tell you that. It's only because I'm wearing a shirt that they're like, oh, okay, I can tell you now. And it's fine. I embrace that, because that's what drives me to keep going. So,
yeah. So you said, so there's 22 known cases.
Well, that was
in the world right
in 2018. I think that was 2018 or 2017 or 22. This last year, there were 99 cases. While it's disappointing when a number goes up, I also look at it, it's not necessarily a bad thing because you're finding the cases. To be honest, during COVID, there was a year that we had 6. Well, I knew that couldn't be accurate. We just weren't getting out to find them. And to treat areas and to, you know, vaccinate, you have to know where to go. You have to find them. And so the fact that we found 99, I think, is actually a good sign, because I can guarantee those villages and surrounding areas have been well vaccinated. So, you know, my hopes is that we'll start to really see a serious decline again in the next couple of years. There's a lot of speculation. They think that we could be done before the end of this decade. I would love it if we could be done by the end of the decade.
That'd be pretty crazy. That'd be a monumental achievement.
And it's 0 for 3 years. So because the virus can survive in water for 3 years, and it's a waterborne disease, so sanitation plays a role. You have to have 0 for 3 years. And at that point, then they can say comfortably, yes, you're certified polio free. So I know we still have some time ahead of us, but you know, I'll be thrilled even the first year we get 0, just to be able to say, you know that we might be on the cusp at this point. And it'll just be an amazing thing. I mean, it's 40 years that they've been doing this. I wish I could tell you how many billions of dollars have gone into it. Woo. But it's quite a few.
A lot.
And again, the number of volunteer hours from Rotarians as well as others is astounding. And you know, right now the people who are doing the vaccinating in Pakistan and Afghanistan, it's a dangerous job. and there have been plenty of them murdered doing their job. And it's usually women who do it because they're allowed to go into any household. A male can't go into a household unless there's another male there, whether a father, a brother. And so to do vaccinating, it has to be females who do it. So you also have to look at the cultural things that go on. And again, that's all done at a level way above my head. So I know about it. I try to keep up some about it. But, again, that's where there's a lot of very dedicated, hardworking people who, the thing about Rotary is we're not religious or politically based. We get to go into places that most people couldn't go into. Not necessarily me going to Afghanistan, but Rotary in general can go in and do things because we're looked at as not religious or politically based. A great example of that recently there was a case of polio in Gaza. Probably somebody had come from Afghanistan or Pakistan infected, and they found they had a child who had the symptoms, tested, had polio. I don't think there's any other organization in the world that could have negotiated a ceasefire for 3 days to allow Rotarians to go in and vaccinate, I think it was over 500,000 kids in 3 days. That's impressive. I mean, you're talking about two groups of people who have generationally fought each other, that you're able to convince them it's in your benefit to stop fighting for 3 days so we can do this. And they did it. And they did it a second time because you have to go back and do a boost. And then as far as I know, there have been no more cases there. So clearly it has worked.
Right,
But that's part of what Rotary can do that, like I said, no other organization can do.
And so, do you know why the Afghanistan-Pakistan area is where most of the cases are? Is there a reason for that?
I think what has happened is, it was an area that was very hard to service for a long time. There's a lot of warfare that's been going. I mean, Afghanistan's been in war conflict for practically my whole lifetime. It's a dangerous area. I know at one time that border region had not been mapped very well, so they didn't know where the villages were, where the clusters of people were. I've been told that it's now one of the best mapped areas, because between the warfare and then the efforts to eradicate polio, they really know where to look now. And so I think it's been dwindling down in size. Now, again, Nigeria, they've been polio free for I think 3 or 4 years now. India is probably now 7 or 8 years. So the whole size of it's getting smaller and smaller. That's just the last spot. And again, as long as we can confine it there and finish it there, we're going to be fine. It's a lot of work. It's not. It's still very difficult. Again, it's a rugged, tough area. I've seen videos of the people bringing in the vaccine, like literally hiking through snow. We always think of it as very hot, but it gets very cold in the winter there. Hiking through snow, it's waist deep, like in these little trails going around mountains, and it's like, whew, hats off to them because I couldn't do it. So,
right.
And as I said, they're very brave for what they do because it is a dangerous job, and they know that, and yet they still do it. So. That's part of why, again, I do what I do because they're doing the hard work. It's raising money. I wouldn't say it's the easiest thing for me to do, but it's not exactly difficult either. I think right now in the 2 rides, and I also did a 24-hour bike ride during COVID. I've raised over $60,000 just from those rides. And then again, the Gates Foundation kicks in our $120,000. So roughly $180,000 that I can say I helped contribute. Again, lots of people actually helped contribute. But I wish I had those pockets. But in this ride, I really would like to hit well over 50,000. I think it's very doable. I think we have a better network going right now. I'm about to be a district governor in Rotary, so that's gives me access to a lot more people to convince my classmates. So Rotary is set up with clubs, districts, zones, and then Rotary International. So I'm in zone 3031. All my classmates that we trained together to become district governors, they're on board. They're doing a lot of stuff that I said, hey, would you do, like I do a demonstration with string that shows just how incredibly, I think earlier I talked about we were this close. That's great, but where did we start? And that's actually truly the amazing part of this is that in 1984, there were 360,000 cases worldwide every year when Rotary first said they were going to do this. Again, that's why the World Health Organization said, nah, we're going to sideline this. And if you take a sheet of paper and you set it on the ground and you start stacking it up with sheet after sheet till it's 365,000 sheets of paper, you end up with a tower that's 119 feet 9 inches long. And when you do that with string, and when I start to talk, I have somebody who starts walking away, and I have string on a spool. And as they're talking, or as they're going, I'm talking about what we're doing in Rotary. And when the person finally gets to the very end, and I said, okay, this is what the 365,000 sheets of paper look like. And then I have to pull out a little cup and open it up, and I pull out a piece of string that, well, this year it's about that big. In years past, it's been so tight that you can barely keep your fingers apart. That's the difference Rotary has made, because some people said 40 years ago, we can do this. And they weren't going to give up just because other people said, it can't be done. They had the heart, they had the minds to do it. Like I said, my job is to help get it across the finish line.
Wow.
So, and I love that part. So it's a good job to have.
Man, yeah, that's a good example to show like just how far it's come.
Even Rotarians, as much as they know in their mind, numbers can be very abstract. When you get 360,000, it's hard for us to actually understand what that means. When you put it in a line like that, and then you show them where we're at now. That's right. That's astounding. Then you realize, wow, that is incredible what we've been able to do. So, but I said the final hurdle now is that pinching them together. I can't wait for it.
Yep. So how are you able to get those 9 weeks to be able to do the ride? How do you work that?
I started 3 years ago planning for this. Right after Houston, I was like, was pretty certain that polio wouldn't be eradicated because, again, you have to have 0 for 3 years. There were already cases, so I knew, no, we're riding to Calgary. And so I started, again, looking at making a lighter rickshaw, figuring out, I'm a contractor, and I had to figure out how to work my job so that I could make enough, quick enough to pay, like all my bills right now are paid up through the end of July. Mortgage, rent on my shop. I wanted everything paid off to the end of July, even though I'll be back in the beginning of July, because I know that after you do a ride like this, it takes a week to just get your mind back in the work mode. It's like, hey, I've been a star for 9 weeks, and it's that now I'm in a shop by myself. It's like, oh, okay. So I had to start planning. And so it's working out pretty well. It is tough. I have clients that, when I start taking contracts about 6-8 months ago, I said, if this continues to this date, wherever I'm at stops. There's no negotiating that. If you want to get somebody else, that's fine. But I'm leaving on the 28th of April. And right now I actually do have a client who's pretty upset with me because his staircase isn't done. And I'd love to have it done. There's a number of reasons I won't go into. But it's like, you knew this going in. And, if you want to get somebody else to finish, that's okay. I'm fine with that. I don't think he'll have much luck with that because I don't want to say it's a really complicated staircase, but right now there's not a lot of skilled laborers out there. And it does take a certain skill set to do them. And so But we'll get through it. I told him, if it's still there when I get back, I'll finish it up for you. I have no problems with that. But I'm gone.
It's going to be August before that.
So once I'm back, I actually have all the parts for this made. There was a bunch of it that we had to pre-stain, and it was a fairly complicated stain process. It's just ready to start putting together. Probably about 8 days of work, I could have it done. I will say that the most challenging part of that will be, I never get a solid day, where it's like, I just worked 8 hours. Now, I have days where I'll work 15 hours, but there'll be like interruptions in the middle of it and stuff. And so ultimately, it may not be a total, 15-hour day. It might be more like 12. It's a challenge. That's the hardest part. Most of my clients have been really supportive of it. They like what I'm doing. They understand the importance of it. I remind them, if you have kids or grandchildren, this benefits you too. I understand you want your project done. I'm a finished carpenter, so I'm always the last guy in, and that's in itself is always a challenge because they're just ready to be done having people invading their house. I understand that, and I try very, very hard to be accommodating and all, but it can be challenging. But we'll get through it. And I have luckily an incredibly supportive wife who, I don't know why she puts up with me at times, and she's not happy about me being gone for 9 weeks. Right. She'll actually be coming out to Calgary when I get there.
Oh, there you go.
But still, it's a solid 8 weeks that we won't see each other. But she's been very supportive, and I think she appreciates what I do, even if it makes it a little more difficult for her at that time. But I'm really lucky. I'm like I said, I have a great team of people around me. I have a wife who's supportive. It makes it a lot easier knowing that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so how can people follow along while you're on the ride?
The easiest way is on social media. If you go on Facebook, it's Ralph's Rickshaw Ride for polio eradication. I think if you just put in Ralph's Rickshaw, I guarantee that's
probably the only one.
That's the only one that's going to come up. Right. It's also on Instagram. We'll have it on our district, Rotary District 6060 website. There'll be some stuff on there. That's actually where you go to donate. I wear QR codes it's on the back of this shirt. It'll be on the back of the bike. We'll have cards we hand out with QR code. People will hand me cash. I mean,
that's kind of funny. It's like really, you put it in your pocket and you're like, is it going to go to it? Nobody knows.
I mean, again, I think that's part of Rotary having a very good reputation is that people will I've had people hand me $300 cash.
Oh, wow.
And they don't know me. And I'm always kind of amazed by that. And it sort of warms my heart that people actually, there are people who still trust and people who still. So usually what happens is the first time that I was starting to get cash given to me, I would go onto the foundation page and I would just use my credit card. Whatever cash was given to me, I would make a donation with my credit card onto it, and I would hold on to the cash then. What I found out though was that if you do it too many times over too short of a period, there's an anti-fraud thing and it wouldn't let me log back in.
Yeah, Discover's going to start.
And so I just decided, okay, once a week, we'll keep a tally of any cash that's given, and once a week I'll just go on and do that. And then that cash gets used for gas for the truck that's behind me, or if we have a hotel we got to cover, any of those kind of incidentals, because I stored enough up in my bank account so that I can just transfer it over that way. But I do prefer if people would just go online and do it that way. But again, we won't turn down cash if that's. I mean, I've had people, when I'm riding, they'll pull up next to me in their car, handing me cash, like.
You gotta do the, you gotta multitask.
It's really pretty funny. It's like, at one time they were actually handing it to the SAG driver behind me, and I'm riding, this is down near Sykeston, Missouri. I'm riding and I'm hearing voices behind me. I'm like, well, that's weird. And it's hard for me to really turn around. And because you tend to want to turn wherever you turn, so I rarely do I turn around much. But I'm hearing these voices, and then finally this SUV pulls up next to me, and a bunch of guys in it, they're waving and saying, hey, you go, and they take off, and then my SAG driver pulls up next to me and goes, man, that was the funniest thing. We're driving next to each other, and they're just like throwing cash through the windows at us. It's like, so, it's funny. You do see, I always come back from these rides with a renewed sense of faith in humanity. The amount of support, the amount of just people being really nice to me when I'm doing this. I'm shocked. When I left for Toronto on the first ride in Collinsville, I was riding with two friends of mine to start the first day. And we couldn't have been more than 3 or 4 miles into the ride. And I'm on one of the main roads going up through Collinsville. And some woman honks her horn and she yells something at me. I can tell she's not happy with me because, the rickshaw takes up some room on the lane. And then she speeds off, and the other cyclist comes up to me, and I go, hey, man, what'd she say? He goes, don't worry about it. It wasn't even clever. And I thought, God, I'm only 3 or 4 miles into the ride. Is this going to be the way it is the whole way? And I never had. In fact, in 2 rides, that is the only person who has ever honked at me and yelled at me.
Oh, wow.
And I can tell you, I was riding through Detroit on a road that it was a 2-lane, 4-lane road. One lane was closed. I'm in the other lane, so I'm a moving roadblock. And I know there's 20, 30 cars behind me at some point because there was no place for me to turn off and let them pass. So finally, I get to this point where I turn off and they pass, and my SAG driver was there because I told him, don't get behind me. Go ahead and just go in front of me because everyone's moving slow. No one's going to hit me. I said, go in front of me because they don't know who you are. I said, they see the signage on my bike, so that'll probably help us through.
Right.
And again, no one gave us a hard time. But the SAG driver had pulled into a little sort of subdivision that had like a little boulevard coming in and out of it. And I go and I grab some Gatorade and I'm drinking, and we're sort of looking at the map on how we're going to get up to the, I think it's the Ambassador Bridge that crosses over into Windsor. And so finally I'm like, okay. I said, you go up to the next subdivision. It's like about 3/4 of a mile up, and I'll pull in behind you again. We'll let everyone pass, and hopefully the road construction will be through by then. And he went to pull out ahead of me, and I was like, oh, wait, Kevin, one more thing. And I walked up to him to say something. I don't even remember what I was going to say, but some woman behind him leans on her horn, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on a podcast, but she was like, get the out of my way. And I turned around and I looked at this woman, and I'm not kidding, she had to have been 85 years old. And I'm like, I was so shocked, I'm like, Grandma! And you could tell she was like, oh, I said that out loud, and was like kind of ducking down behind her steering wheel. But I always said that she was honking at Kevin, not at me, so it didn't count. So.
Okay, yeah. That'd be a little bit different if you didn't see it. But
that's it.
That is kind of crazy.
The entire ride to Houston had nobody give me a hard time on it. If I'm like, sometimes the SAG driver will go ahead to get something, scout out something for me, or we'll have short periods where I'm by myself, and sometimes I'll stop. I'll be just getting some water on the side of the road. I can't tell you how many times people slow down and stop and say, hey, are you good? Do you need anything? And it's like, wow, it's really nice. People genuinely do that. And it just renews your faith in people that they're going to help you out.
Yeah.
And I have countless stories like that. We won't go into all of them right now. but no, in general, people have been super nice.
I think there was a guy who walked from coast to coast. I think he walked. He didn't bike, like all the way across the country. I think he got bit by a snake on his ride. That was like somewhat recently. It just came to mind. It's like some adverse thing happening when you're trying to do a super long ride or walk like that. And
I bet he didn't have a SAG vehicle behind him.
He did not have a SAG vehicle. It was probably in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So
that actually, this ride, I am going to, there's 2 things I've been told that I'll have to have. I have to have bear spray when I'm in South Dakota, which is really mind-blowing to me. I'm like, I'm on a bike. Like, really? And I go, no, you should have it. Okay. And as much as I've spent time in the outdoors, in dry, arid places where rattlesnakes are prevalent, I have never seen a rattlesnake in the wild. And my fear is that when I finally do, it'll be attached to my ankle. So I do keep a good eye out for stuff ahead when you're riding, because snakes, particularly in the morning, they do like to get on places to start warming up. And we did do a ride on the Katy Trail with a friend of mine where he rode by a copperhead. His foot was inches from the head of this copperhead. And in fact, when I saw, he was ahead of me. When I saw that it was a snake, I was like, do I yell to him or keep him ride by so he gets by it quicker?
Yeah.
And I chose the latter. I let him go by it, but then I pulled up to it, and when I saw it, I'm like, wow. And it was probably the biggest copperhead I've ever seen. It was a good.
They're usually not that big.
They're not that big. Beautiful snake though, man. I took pictures of it.
From
it was
a
just
distance,
warming up, but I also knew there were cyclists coming up behind us, so I kind of was like, all right. So I had a bike pump with a long handle, and I kind of was like, you need to get back off into the grass area, and so we kind of coaxed it off. But so you do have to be careful what you're.
Yeah.
The other thing that you see a lot of is, unfortunately, you see a lot of roadkill. And going down through southern Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, I saw so we're going through the short distance of Arkansas before you get to Memphis. So we're riding basically sort of parallel to 55 down there. And I kept seeing, roadkill, of course, possums, lots of armadillos.
Oh, really?
The farther you get
Raccoons?
south, the more, a couple here and there, lots of birds of various sorts. And so after seeing a lot of roadkill one night, we're sitting, I had my SAG driver and I was like, something? I said, we're going to play roadkill bingo tomorrow. And he's kind of like, what? I said, I'm going to make a bingo card. You're going to have it. Every time I see something, I'm going to yell it back to you until we get bingo. And then we're going to stop and have something to eat, and he's just laughing. He's like, okay. So I had my drawing pencils. So I'm drawing, like a bluebird. Well, surprisingly, I saw a bluebird, and we filled that, not did we just hit bingo, we filled the whole thing up almost by lunchtime. It was like, there's a lot of roadkill out there. And again, you're going slow, so you see everything. But it also changes from state to state. The farther south you go, you start seeing, of course, more armadillos, snakes. Louisiana, because we were going next to a lot of rice paddies, which are also used for crawdads, you start seeing them all over the road. The Louisiana snakes was definitely one of the prevalent things. And I got to tell you, I don't know, the guys who go into the rice paddies and, harvest and do the crawdads, I'm like, you couldn't pay me to get in that water because I know there's a ton of snakes in there. And it's like, and I'm not scared of snakes as long as I see them first. But damn, you're in mucky water. I'm like, no, there's no way you're getting me into that. So.
Yeah, nah, dude. My buddy got bit by a copperhead one time, right on top of the foot. I had to get air evac to the hospital. Yeah, it was.
They're not fun.
They're out there, but hopefully they stay away from them.
Again, as long as I see it first, I don't mind it. I can enjoy it. I am an outdoor person. I love the wild animals out there. It's where they belong. It's
if
fine.
you weren't, that'd be a long 2,200 miles.
Yeah, it would be a real long 2,200. But no, it's you'll see a lot. I will say, I even saw roadkill alligator. It was like,
really,
yeah, that's not real common. And then the other thing is, there's a lot of wild boars down in Arkansas and Alabama. All that down is. But I think I might have seen one pig hit, and they're smart. They don't get hit very often. And that was one of my bingo ones that we always had a hard time filling in. So
how big are those things?
They can get big. Now the one I'm pretty sure I saw one. It was probably, I don't know, probably 150 pounds. It wasn't a big one, but they could get enormously big.
Yeah,
I mean, I've heard 800 pounds, and that's like,
wow.
You don't want them coming after you.
No, so, run the other way.
In fact, we were in Mississippi, and one of the hosts that we were staying with, well, we weren't staying. They put us in a hotel, but he took us out to dinner. We're out to dinner, and he's looking at his phone. He goes, "Oh, I'm sorry." He goes, "I have my camera set up on the back porch." He goes, "Damn wild hogs are back there tearing up my grass again." And I'm just like, really?
It's like, I don't think we have an equivalent to that here. Maybe every once in a while you get a deer in,
Yeah,
area,
well, I mean, I live
that's
in Tower
about
Grove
it.
East, and we've seen deer in the alleys in Tower Grove East in the last month.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah. So wildlife does tend to get in here, but just not all that often.
Mm-hmm.
So Forest Park has quite a bit. When I did one of the fundraisers I was mentioning earlier, I did a 24-hour bike ride. And it was for polio. It was during COVID, and I was trying to come up with a way to raise money that I didn't need a whole lot of crew people working with me because we were being cautious, but still, it was like I didn't want to put them at any kind of risk. And so I decided I always wondered how far I could go in 24 hours. And so for my birthday, I decided I'm going to start at midnight and end at midnight the next night, and we're going to ride nothing but Forest Park.
Mm-hmm.
And Forest Park at 3 o'clock in the morning has some amazing wildlife. First of all, every trash can going down, I think it's Lagoon Drive, has 1 to 3 raccoons in it, pulling out trash, trying to find any food scraps. There are wild mink in Forest Park. You almost never see them, but in the middle of the night, if you're over the lake in front of the Muni, they might look like little cats running around, but those are actually mink. And I also have been told they're over by the fish ponds, a little farther over. That morning I saw a giant snapping turtle right by the golf course in the middle of the road. People had stopped. There was the ranger who was trying to figure out how to coax it off the road. He goes, "Well, maybe if I grab it by the tail." I said, "No, that's not a good idea. I can tell you that right now. It's not a good idea." I said, "What you want is get somebody over from the greenhouses, tell them to bring a shovel and use a shovel to coax it." And I think that might have been what they finally did. Although it was amazing. We're looking at this turtle, and at some point somebody had shot it. You could tell it had a hole in its shell. It was healed, but you could tell it had been shot. It was like, oh my God.
I mean, they're not fast. It's not like you need to.
Although on the ride when I was down in Louisiana, there's turtles. That's another roadkill. There's lots of turtles, and I was talking to some guys who had just gotten off shift work at a power plant, and they were sitting at a gas station, just having a few beers, kicking it back, and I ended up talking to them for about an hour. And one of them's like, "Yeah," goes on the way into work, I saw a big old turtle, so I went out and got it. That'll be our dinner tonight. It's like
eat turtles.
Oh yeah.
I guess
not uncommon.
anything you can get your hands on.
So he's like, "Yeah, nope, yeah, we find them all the time." And they were all talking about it. I was like, okay. I mean, I've had turtle. I couldn't tell you. It didn't seem like it had a special flavor to me at all. One time. So
yeah, well, our right by our KMOV station, there's a bunch of geese out there. There's like a little pond, and they just hang out there. They're kind of a nuisance to just I mean, besides the fact that like they'll cross the road and stuff. And the other day I was heading into work, and here come the geese, and they do not care when the cars are passing by. You're gonna stop for them. And there were, little.
Are the goslings already out?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was cute. But other than that, like these guys are like they're out to get you, man. You got to be careful.
Oh yeah, well you don't want to tangle with a gander. We raised geese when I was a kid. Ganders will take chunks out of your leg.
Yeah,
really
well,
hurt.
one of them put a nest right at the entrance to the parking lot. It's like right there, so. Literally, we had to put out an announcement. It was like, "Hey, don't approach the geese or whatever."
No, don't.
And they paid somebody to come take the eggs and like put fake ones there so that
there's a couple. That's one of the things they do. They also call oiling the eggs, where they'll coat the eggs in oil because then the air can't pass through and the embryo just dies, and they'll just sit on basically a dead egg for a while. But yeah, they do all sorts because those geese they're like permanent residents. They're not ones that fly back and forth, and so
they're there to stay.
Yep, that's always an issue. I hear that quite a bit. We used to do wild animal rescue growing up, so I have a lot of experience with animals.
Nice.
So,
well, is there anything else you wanted to mention? You think I didn't ask?
You hit quite a few topics. I really appreciate this because, again, my job is to get the word out and let people know that, yeah, it is still an issue. Yeah, it's in a tiny spot in the world. Hopefully it stays there and we can close in on it and finish the job up. But it does take money. And people say, well, if it's in such a tiny area, why does it take so much to finish up? And part of that is that even though right now it's just in a little area, there's a lot of countries because of poor sanitation and circumstance, they're at risk. So yeah, if somebody did go from here to there, you could potentially have a pretty good spread event happen. To minimize that likelihood or to mitigate if it does happen, you have to have testing facilities. And there's several testing facilities around the world that they can quickly get, I think it's fecal matter that they usually use to do the test, to a testing facility where they can say, yes, this is polio. That way, then the response can be quick and in. It takes a lot to maintain that kind of network. And again, even though it's a small area, we're still having to look worldwide. I think there's like 60 some countries that are at risk. So we have to always be diligent, and that's expensive to maintain. So, that's why I'm out here saying, let's donate, let's finish this up. Because once it's done, we never have to worry about that again. We'll probably focus then on something else. It might be malaria. It could be, there's a whole host of diseases that we actually probably do have the tools to eliminate, but they're still farther off. That let's finish up this job first. It's not that we don't do things for dengue fever or malaria. I mean, we buy malaria nets. That's part of Polio Plus is buying malaria nets. So I just ask people, be part of something really big. Donate and know that your name is now tied in with us eliminating polio. Again, it's only been done one other time. So I think it's an honor to be able to say, yeah, we saw it, we knew it was on the ropes, we helped finish it. So I ask everybody to join with us. And the last little thing I'll say is, if you're in a point in your life where you want to make a difference and you want to help people, Rotary is a phenomenal organization to do that with. And I invite them to do the research like I did when I first was asked to join Rotary. I started to look at things like Charity Watch and see Rotary always has the top level, 5-star level. It's incredibly efficient because it's volunteer. So your dollar, I think it's somewhere around 90 cents of your dollar goes to what you want it to go to. That's higher than almost any other organization can say. Yeah, that's really good. That's an astounding level. And that's what drew me into it. And it's not just polio that we do. It's also a local organization. It could be that your local police department says, hey, we don't have enough money to buy armored vests for all of our policemen. Rotary clubs are known for saying, all right, we're going to do a fundraiser so that our local policemen are protected. Or there's a dog park that needs a fence redone on it. That's all stuff that Rotary does. So it's a very wide, there's 7 areas of focus that we concentrate on. It's almost impossible not to squeeze something into one of those 7 areas. And so as a member of a club, you have a lot of say. And that's another unique thing about Rotary is that, not only can you go volunteer your time and your money, but you can say, hey, I see a need for it here. I want to champion that, and they'll do it because you're a member of a club. So even though there's the lofty goal of let's eliminate polio throughout the entire Rotary spectrum, on a very local, you have a big say in what goes on. So I can't stress enough, if you're at a point in your life where that's what you want to do, this is a great organization to do it. And I openly invite you to come and join.
All right. Well, good luck on the ride, man.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for listening and watching Backstory STL. We'll release new episodes every Wednesday. Check it out on the First Alert 4 app or wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time.